Chris Mackowski for the Emerging Civil War, and I am on the battlefield at Gettysburg, and joining me is my favorite Gettysburg guy, Doug Douds. We've been hanging out with the American Battlefield Trust for a couple days and just kind of enjoying the battlefield for the anniversary. And let me just ask you the big, broad question first, Doug. What is it about this battlefield that resonates for you?
Okay, so I came here when I was 10 years old, and I've been hooked ever since. I think in the larger sense, the study of warfare in particular in Gettysburg is the idea that you see human beings both at their very best and at their very worst. And in this case, I find those stories both utterly compelling. So where the fate of the Republic hangs in the balance, you see the vicious sacrifices that both sides make, and of course, the dramatic outcome that literally changes the direction in which the nation could go.
Now, you have the opportunity to explore this battlefield on a one-on-one basis with visitors and also with staff rides for military folks. What's a good way for you, as someone who's been doing this a lot, what's a good way for you to see the battlefield?
So I'll tell you, I am the way I most enjoy visiting the battlefield is I like doing staff rides. And when we do those are anywhere from 8-10 hours out on the battlefield. But ultimately, the success of a staff ride matters less to what I can do, but more to what the people bring. Because when you're doing a staff ride, I would argue you're trying to answer three questions. You're trying to answer the what happened, the so what did it mean back then, and the now what does it mean to us today? And when you bring groups of people out here, the what does it mean to us today is so much shaped by the individuals that are taking all this in that inevitably I learn a lot from them too.
And that's a point that we came up with earlier today, talking with Carol Reardon. She said that there's not a time she doesn't visit a battlefield where she doesn't learn something. Do you have a particular light bulb moment that you can recall off the top of your head? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
well, so I might parrot the one that Carol used this morning. You never know how someone's going to look at an event that you've walked past 100 times. We were talking about old Mr. Burns out there on the first day. It's the story of a citizen's from the Gettysburg who goes out and fights with the Union on day one. And normally we talk about, hey, he becomes a Union hero, one of the few people Abraham Lincoln wants to visit. That's kind of the standard story. But when you start to talk about veterans who have been to Afghanistan or Iraq, they start to see, hey, wait a minute, that's an armed civilian who's not wearing a uniform, who's firing back at us. What does that do to the rules of engagement? How should we engage them? How do we treat them when they're wounded or killed? All of a sudden, it opens up a whole panoply of issues that I never would have considered before.
That was a huge mind blower for me to hear her talk about.
Yeah.
That. So is there a particular place on this battlefield that resonates with you on a very personal level?
I guess I always like the juxtapositions of different places on the battlefield. Most everybody likes to go to Little Round Top. They like to go to the backside of Little Round Top. And they certainly, almost everybody understands the story of Colonel Chamberlain. I like the front side of Little Round Top. I like the story of Paddy O'Rourke. I like the idea that he's an Irishman, that he's old, that he's Catholic, which at the time would have been 3 strikes against an individual. Yet very much in the Winston Churchill sense of, Americans are great after they've exhausted all possibilities, they will do the right thing. He graduates first in the second class of 1861 from West Point, so that his talent is recognized, that he's in command of a regiment. So when somebody says, Paddy, not a second to lose, he doesn't lose a second, and it makes all the difference on the other side of Little Round Top.
Now, I have to ask, when you go up there, do you rub Paddy's nose for good luck?
Well, Douds is a little bit Scotch-Irish, so of course I do. I mean, officially, I don't.
No, of course not, right? Any last bits of advice you'd give to someone coming to visit Gettysburg this summer?
Well, I'll tell you, one is, it's worth coming out to these battlefields. It's an expression of who we are as a people. Even as Lincoln comes here to define what does this sacrifice mean, I think in a large part he says this is who we are. We fight for the notion that all men are created equal, and that's in doubt in the American Civil War. And ultimately this war decides that in fact we are about all men being created equal, all people being created equal. So it's a story about not only who we are, but who we aspired to be, and of course you and I are stewards of that burden to this day.
Wonderful. Doug Douds, Gettysburg guide, all-around fantastic historian. Love being out on the field with you today. What a privilege.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Chris.
Chris Mackowski for Emerging Civil War here at Gettysburg. Thanks for joining us.